G'day guys, Adam Cogan here from SSW TV, and today I have some Kubernetes experts with me, Rahul and Tarun. How are you boys?
We are good, thank you.
Thanks.
Excellent. How long have you been using Kubernetes?
So our journey with Kubernetes has been quite long. We have been working on the platform for around 3 years now, and as part of that activity, we also sort of contributing back to the community, which we have learned so much from. So we authored 2 free ebooks on Kubernetes, and it's a relative, I would say, Istio, which is a service mesh implementation on Kubernetes, free for anyone to read.
Wow, is writing a book fun?
Yeah, it was.
Not initially.
Oh no, why'd you write the second one then?
So for first, when we write the first one, we were like really wanted to do learn more about Kubernetes. But when we were done with the first one, we kind of get addicted to it. So we started on the second one as well.
Excellent. So what's the first one? What does it cover?
It covers Kubernetes in a nutshell. It's basically a short ebook which is good for learning Kubernetes 101 for yourself, and you can get it free from Syncfusion website, which was our publisher.
Oh, beautiful. That's the right price. And what's the second one about?
So the second book is called Istio Succinctly. So these titles are so named because the size of the ebooks are very small. The Kubernetes books was about 100 pages or so, and this one is also 100 pages. So you can, it takes a very short amount of time in order to get familiar with a new technology that you haven't actually used before. So Istio is a service mesh that adds on a bunch of features to Kubernetes, and you can use it in conjunction with all the feature set of Kubernetes in order to enhance your experience and not write code for every single problem that you face with typical applications.
Rightio. So stepping back, why do you love Kubernetes?
Right.
So I would say after working on it for past 3 years, we have get quite fond of it because of its flexibility in terms of deployment. You can run your containers and orchestrate them with Kubernetes, and you don't have to worry about a lot of things which are usually required with container orchestration, because it get handled by Kubernetes out of the box.
Yeah.
So I assume at work are you knee deep in Kubernetes all the time?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Tell us the setup at work. Who do you work for? How much stuff? How many VMs are you managing?
So I work for Zip, which is a popular buy now pay later company in Australia, and it has its operations all over the world. So as part of our day-to-day operations, we have adopted Kubernetes as a standard platform on which we deploy all of our enterprise applications. And because of certain reasons, some of the artifacts got too spread out, and we also use Lambda functions for some of the stateless workloads and also some EC2 instances. But we are in the process of migrating all our LOB applications, line of business applications, over to Kubernetes, so that we have only a single platform to host and manage. And at this moment, I believe there are about 30 applications with a bunch of microservices. I've lost count of how many services those applications consist of, but a lot of applications. In fact, you can think of it as the whole Zip operations actually work from an EKS cluster, and there's a lot of commitment that we have put onto it. So Kubernetes is essentially running the whole company at the moment.
Okay, all right. Yeah. So most people are sold on Kubernetes is great for orchestrating, a complex setup.
Right.
But you also like this product Argo, right?
Yes.
Right.
So this is a framework. Is this better? Like if you're just going with one cloud, is this still, like if you're just going with Azure AKS, is this still a good idea to use Argo?
Yep. So if you have workflow specific requirement for your application, and you want to execute workflow for any of your existing requirement, then Argo makes perfect sense if your existing infrastructure is AKS or any other Kubernetes environment based, because it natively integrates with Kubernetes. You don't have to learn anything new, and you can only focus on your business logic for your application, and workflow execution, whether it's sequential or parallel. Everything is handled by Argo out of the box, and you just have to create configuration in YAML, which every Kubernetes guy is very familiar with. So you just have to create the configuration, and your workflow will get executed. And there are so many options to run the workflow in sequence, in parallel, or event-based trigger, which you can leverage to fulfill your workflow requirements.
So even if you weren't planning on switching clouds, you would still use Argo just with Azure's AKS. It just how much effort is the YAML changes?
Yeah. So one of the key things that we need to actually be mindful of is that organizations currently want to manage a single platform. So they don't want to spread their applications out to multiple services or even multiple clouds at the moment. So in order to keep things consistent and contained, organizations are committing to Kubernetes as a platform. Of course, with the different cloud providers, you would have different features set available with their Kubernetes offerings. But let's say if you commit to a single platform, then you want to put all of your workloads on it and not spread it all over the place unless you absolutely have to. For example, there are PaaS services that don't have a counterpart available in Kubernetes. And for those services, you would move to. So, for instance, Service Bus or Event Hubs, messaging infrastructure I'm talking about, which requires specialized infrastructure, or even databases for that matter. You don't want to have the burden of hosting your own database on your cluster and go through this massive headache of sharding and scaling it. You would rather want to offload it to
a PaaS offering like Azure SQL database or Cosmos DB.
Yes. So once you have this platform, you would want to use as many features available on this platform, not spread it all over the place. So it not only gives you portability in terms of if you want to have the same set of features available on your dev box and the same features available on your production or any other environment, you can use Kubernetes as a standard because it is something which you can run on your local laptop as well, a local environment, and then push the same bits across as in your application as specs and run it on a bigger VM as a Kubernetes hosted on cloud.
And when you're doing this work, are you doing it and testing it with multiple clouds? Or do you just develop for one cloud? Are you primary AWS or Azure?
So we kind of work on both the clouds at the moment. So some of the features we use from Azure, like Active Directory or similar features. And for compute resources, we use AWS as well. So, but Argo is specifically for Kubernetes. So if you are running Kubernetes, whether it be in Azure or AWS, it will work with that flawlessly. You don't have any problem with that.
What about my telemetry? With Azure, we've got application insights. What is the story if I'm using Argo and AWS and stuff?
So with AWS, the parallel to application insights in Azure is CloudWatch.
CloudWatch, yeah.
So you can pipe your logs from your Kubernetes cluster to CloudWatch just as easily. You can pipe your logs.
And it just works the same way. No extra.
Yes, it's just
you don't
the same.
have to do too much effort.
So basically, you're just telling me using Argo is not an extra investment over just a normal scenario.
Right.
Yes. So Argo is, think of it as a set of features that you're adding to your cluster. So by default, you have this bare metal cluster that is capable enough to do certain things. And running workflow is not one of the native capabilities of Kubernetes. And that's why CNCF bought in this project. As it was a project donated to CNCF, but now that it belongs to CNCF, they added this project to their umbrella just because it enhances Kubernetes by adding more features to an existing cluster, grants you abilities to run workflows, but then its family of projects also make events a first-class citizen of Kubernetes, which you would otherwise need to rely on third-party services.
Yeah. Right. So in the Azure world, running logic apps and having workflows, what is the story with Azure container instances?
Yes. So Azure Container Instances lets you run containers in a workflow fashion as well. But if you are already using Kubernetes and you don't want to include Azure Container Instances or Azure Logic Apps as part of your infrastructure, if they are not already part, then Argo fits better because you don't have to manage another component as part of your infrastructure. You can just focus on Kubernetes and deploy Argo as a workflow option.
Yeah. And you can, just to add to that ACI is not something very different, as an it adds an element of flexibility to Kubernetes. So for example, if you have let's say you provision your cluster with let's say 10 nodes, but then all of a sudden you had a spike and you want to scale out immediately, you can rather use ACIs in order to expand your capability at a moment's notice, rather than adding more VMs when you know that you would only be using those VMs temporarily. And once the spike is over, you get back to your VMs.
Okay, all right. Can I ask you about state? What's the story with the storage of state?
Yes.
So for state, if you are using Argo with Kubernetes, as with any Kubernetes instance, you can use volumes or persistent volumes and attach any managed or unmanaged storage with your cluster. So same thing can be used with Argo as well. You don't have to do anything extra for storing the workflow state. It will work similar to how it works with any Kubernetes component, and you can use the state out of the box.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Testing. What is your testing story like? Is there any differences with your testing?
Yeah. So with the Argo, I mean, it simplifies testing your application to a better degree than you would with any other case. In that, since Argo is orchestrating communication between a sequence of containers, so let's say your workflow consists of 3 containers, you can test them individually, but you can also test the whole workflow together. And since everything is running in a container, you can run Argo in environments where you can run tests locally or even on your CI/CD machines. You can use Kind for that, which is one of the very popular options for running Kubernetes in your local environment. So use Kind, host your workflows there and run integration tests over there. You can also test them in units, as in just one of the steps of the workflow. You can test it individually, but then in conjunction with others as well.
And what's the tooling like around Argo? Do you have? Is it just YAML, or have you got some cool tools to build and monitor all the workflows?
So one of the tool which is available out of the box, which is Argo UI. You can use that to manage your workflows and diagnose or debug issues in your existing workflow. And if you don't want to use Argo UI, and if you already have a setup with Kubernetes for monitoring and managing your cluster, you can just use that out of the box. You don't have to do anything extra for Argo, since Argo works as a native Kubernetes object, so it will just support all the integration mechanism which are there for Kubernetes.
Oh wow, that's just amazing.
Yeah.
What is the typical enterprise that uses Argo, and where is a place that you wouldn't use it? Like, is there a size, complexity?
Yeah. So I would say that so there are size and complexity limitations. That's just not true. That's not only true for Argo, but for any other systems, I would say. For example, an enterprise running very small applications, or which is a small sized enterprise and doesn't have many complex applications that power the enterprise, LOB applications as we call them. If they don't have a lot of them, they don't need to invest in Kubernetes. And if there is no Kubernetes, there is no Argo as well. But even when you're using Argo, if the workflows are really very simple, for example, if you shouldn't use it to run your business logic for applications, but rather offload a lot if you require a lot of processing of the data, or if you have an existing set of steps that need to take place in order for you to achieve something. For example, in our case, every month, end of the month, we run some end of the month processes that have a predefined set of steps wherein we reconcile accounts and do a lot of computations. We offload all of these kind of concerns. We build a workflow, and we trigger this workflow at the end of every month, and it runs a couple of times and generates all the reports for us.
So I would say, in a short, like if you are using Kubernetes, then you are good to go with Argo. You don't have to think about it. Yeah.
What's the story with sharing templates and getting reusability?
Yep. So Argo provides you full flexibility in terms of reusability. You can define template for one workflow, and then you can use them across workflows. It's just up to you how you want to reuse that. Since everything is YAML based, you don't have to worry about any extra component build or anything like that. You just define your templates and you use them as it is.
Wow, this is sounding too good to be true.
Yeah.
So obviously, this is fantastic. This is an open source tool. What's the costs that come with it?
It's
is it really all free?
Yep.
Yes, it is completely free.
Yeah. So there is no licensing for.
What about the extra tools and stuff like that?
So by default,
there's always free cheese in a mousetrap, isn't there?
So it's a CNCF project. So as you know, they don't give you any license product as it is. So it's all free. There is no licensing, but definitely if you run Argo, only cost we can think of is that you will have another component in your cluster, and whatever you need to pay for that component,
so the extra
for
compute
using
costs.
and the extra compute cost,
Is that
will
incremental or is it substantial?
It depends on your usage, what kind of workflows you are using, but I don't think it will increase that much even if you use large number of workflows within your cluster.
So even talking about ongoing costs, if you look at it, whenever you run an Argo workflow, it spins up a bunch of services, but then once the workflow is done, those services scale down. So you're only paying for the time and resources which which are actually used in running this workflow. So it's very optimal in terms of costs, because otherwise you would have this function or whatever running at all times, which you might not always be using. Of course, with functions, you can use things like Keda, which is Kubernetes event-driven autoscaler, in order to scale it up or down. But feel that Argo is a much better way of running workflows, complex workflows on Kubernetes rather than Keda is.
Fantastic. All right. Well, that's been awesome. Thank you, Rahul.
Okay.
Thank you, Tarun.
Thank you, Adam.
And thank you for speaking at NDC. This has been great to be involved. It's a shame we don't have the crowds of the prior years, but we're making do and we're having fun. So there you have it. That is a different way of architecting your cloud solutions. It sounds quite compelling, and you never want to tie yourself down to one cloud provider anyway. So it's all good. So with that, this is Adam Cogan signing off for SSW TV.